Brian Powell of I Run Far here with Meghan Hicks of I Run Far. Meghan, you just completed the Nolan's 14 route, setting an FKT for the 14 summit and being the first woman to go under 60 hours trailhead to trailhead. First off, congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you feel about completing Nolan's?
I feel very proud.
You've done some really long things and some very mountainous things. How does this compare to, say, Tour de Géant or the Hard Rock 100?
So Nick Penatella asked me, or said on the morning that we started, we were both at the Blanks cabin trailhead, standing around in the wee hours, getting ready to go. And he said that Missy Gosney had told him that this was going to be harder than Tour de Géant. And so he said, keep that in mind as you're out there, because I want to know what you think. And so as soon as I got to the finish yesterday, Nick was laying there.
Because he had done it as well.
He'd done Tour de Géant in 2014, the same year I did it. And then, he got to the finish 2 hours ahead of me yesterday. So he had a couple hours to ponder it. And his first question for me was, what was harder? And we both, sorry Missy, but we both agree that Tour de Géant was harder than this.
Well, that makes me think you definitely sworn off Tour de Géant again.
Yeah.
Is there another Nolan's in your future?
I don't see why I would ever have to do this again. I mean, I don't know what the answer to that question would be if I'd come over the finish over 60 hours, but I mean, I said to myself many times on the second night, just keep going so you don't have to do this again.
I've heard that refrain at Tour de Géant. Is that your sort of mantra? Or really?
Possibly, because I haven't given any thought to that. Possibly.
Now, having done the Hard Rock and Tour de Géant, what made you want to do Nolan's 14? Why this project?
So I started coming to these mountains when I was a college kid, and these mountains are pretty special. The Sawatch and Colorado 14ers, I don't know, they just have this thing about them. I don't know what it is, but they kind of get in you a little bit. So I came to the Sawatch for the first time when I was a college kid, and then have just been kind of coming back every now and again, and then started coming back regularly in the summer of 2013 and started exploring, heard about people doing the Nolan's route and started exploring it myself. And yeah, it just slowly creeps in your blood and you can't get rid of it.
When did attempting it this year come into your mind?
People have asked me in past years, when are you going to do it? Because I would come to the Sawatch and hang out for a couple of weeks and spend time on the Nolan's line with other people who'd done it or they were training for it, and it terrified me in a spectacular way. Like going up one of the mountains and going down, maybe linking up two of them, or a long day, three of them, that wasn't terrifying, but the idea of putting it all together, like, it was unfathomable. But for some reason this year, my mentality had changed. I don't know if I had just grown comfortable enough with just all the questions of the terrain and that experience, or if I'd done things enough that I was growing confident in my ability to do the whole line. But when I got here this year, after Hard Rock, and started training, like experimenting with the Nolan's route, I just felt different. I felt like, I think I might be able to do this. Like I could fathom it.
And what did you, going into it, what did you think was going to be the biggest challenge, the hardest part?
I'm fearsome of the weather here. The storms are severe. I was fearsome of not finishing, like under 60 hours. I know it's a very arbitrary time, but it's what the people who designed the route established as the goal time.
It's been around for 20 years, so.
Yeah, and I'm a very goal-oriented person, and I don't like starting things that I can't finish, and usually when I start something, I feel pretty confident that I'm going to do what I'm starting, but I literally, you don't know if you can do this until it's done. And I was also fearsome of the second night of no sleep. Like I don't really function super well without much sleep, and so I knew that was going to be rough.
No, the weather turned out to be perfect.
Yep.
Chilly evenings, but pretty much cloud-free. Didn't have to worry about rain.
No, I got sunburned.
A little bit.
Yeah.
What ended up being the biggest challenge out there?
Um, I don't think that there was any one thing that was harder than everything else. I mean, I guess the most significant factor that impacted my ultimate finishing time was that my stomach just sort of shut off with 24 hours to go. And anytime I tried to put solid foods in it, it just rejected. And so I was on a liquid root beer and Coke diet for 24 hours, and even going over the last mountain over Massive, my body finished with root beer. So Mount Massive was sponsored by Coca-Cola yesterday.
There's a little ramen up there too.
Yeah, I might have left a little ramen on the trail. Sorry about that.
You are, at least leading up to this, methodical in your preparation. I mean, you've seen all the course a couple times. You didn't have goal splits necessarily, but you had like estimates and many pages of instructions for crew. But in terms of just getting around and what you wanted, how did reality match up with preparation?
I think pretty close. I mean, you crewed me, so you might have a slightly different version from the more outside perspective looking in, but I felt like I had to take a very methodical approach to it and like try to factor out and control some of the variables. Like for me, I just knew my ability, that I had the, like, my own athletic ability. I had the ability to finish it if basically the stars aligned and nothing too terrible happened, but I had to like factor out weather. Like, I'm just not fast enough to sit out a storm for 2 or 3 hours. Like, I'm not going to finish under 60 hours then. And I had to factor out navigation, because if I lose an hour to screwing up navigation, then I'm not going to finish under 60 hours. So I tried to control the most affecting variables, and I think I did that. I mean, I screwed up little bits of navigation. I lost a few minutes here and there and a few minutes here and there, but sorry, Nick, I didn't pull a Nick Panatella and go off the side of La Plata. And
the wrong side of La Plata?
Yeah, and I mean, spend 4 hours mucking about trying to get back on course. Nick is talented enough of a runner that he had that wiggle room and still finish under 60 hours. That wouldn't have happened to me. I'd been way over.
But there were plenty of hiccups along the way. Not big
there
ones.
Always are.
Yeah.
There always are.
Now, how do you deal with those? Because there certainly some of them were probably frustrating in the moment, but how do you move beyond?
I feel like I've gotten to a point with the challenges of this sport, and by this sport, like I am talking about running, I'm talking about adventuring, I'm talking about time spent in wilderness and really variable conditions, that you just have to let things roll over you and just let it go. And stuff happens, and if you simmer on it for too long, you spend hours by yourself out there. If you spend that time simmering on some little thing that happened 2 hours ago, you're wasting this beautiful experience. There's always something that kind of gets in you a little bit. And so, like, for instance, for me, it was on the second night, like, I got the sleepies really bad, and I was starting to let that control me. And I had to, like, keep telling myself, put it in a box, compartmentalize it. You knew it was going to be a factor. Deal with it, move on, you idiot.
Yeah. And there was one thing that almost, at least had you wanting to maybe stop. And what was that? Like,
I don't know. What was it?
Well, at least caused you a lot of maybe stress or discomfort. And that was going out into night 2. And into night 2, you knew you were right on your arbitrary, but your goal of getting trailhead to trailhead in 60 hours. What was that stress like? And
well, I mean, I set up splits that were sort of like what I thought were worst case scenario splits, where if I consistently come in to the different spots where I was timing myself over those splits, I'm not going to make it. And pretty much almost every split I was under, and so I was gradually, building myself a buffer of time where I knew if I had a problem, I could deal with it. But a couple of things happened that just chewed into that time a little bit, and then I screwed up my splits on La Plata really bad. I think when I wrote the splits, I think I didn't factor in like the 2 miles of road that you have to run from Winfield to the actual trailhead to go up the south side of La Plata. So when I came in after La Plata, I was a half hour slower than the split, and I was essentially on 60-hour pace.
Right on.
And so I basically had to spend the entire last 2 mountains not knowing if I was going to finish in 60 hours. And my stomach had turned, and so I wasn't able to get fuel in. Like, climbing was really slowed down a lot. I could still like jog 15-minute pace in the Alpine and, you know, do the kind of downhill fast meandering that you need to do for the kind of off-trail terrain. I still had that, but the uphills were slowing down a lot. And that, yeah, you're right, that was really stressful, not knowing if I was gonna, make it until, I don't think I knew I was gonna make it until you paced me over the last mountain, over Mount Massive. And when we finished the off-trail terrain and we got back on the trail, we sat down for like 2 minutes to empty all the crud out of our shoes, and we had like an hour and 10 minutes or something like that to run 3 miles on trail with no navigation.
And downhill, like.
Basically downhill. And I just, you know, that was the first time that I knew that I was going to make it.
What did that feel like?
I didn't feel a lot, to be honest with you. I think Nolan's 14 is a really good numbing agent.
Fair enough. Was there anything while you're out there that was particularly beautiful, or what was?
Oh, all of it. Colorado is ridiculous right now. I mean, the aspens literally started to turn, like, in a couple days prior to Nolan's, and you know, you're out there for 2.5 days. Literally, the groves of aspen are turning colors while you're out there. So you're at, 10,000 feet on Friday, and the aspens are green, and then you're at 10,000 feet on Sunday, and the aspens are this color. It's unreal.
Were there any fun animal experiences out there?
I saw a porcupine.
Yeah.
I hallucinated a squirrel bear.
A squirrel? No, it's a squirrel bear, like a large bear with like pointy teeth and a big tail, or is it like a squirrel that's fat?
Squirrel-sized, bear-shaped.
Did it talk to you, or was it just?
No, it laid with its back on like it came out on the trail, and it laid down with its belly up like a dog would do, and the dog wanted its belly fed.
Did you pet the squirrel bear?
No, because when I approached it, it ran off.
No, what else did you hallucinate?
There was like a tree trunk next to the trail, and it looked like like one of those small ammunition cases, like those metal army ones. It looked like one that was like 10 times that size. And I was actually running by myself down the down a Jeep road right after Mount Elbert. I can't remember the name of that road. It's like a Jeep road that goes off of North Half Moon Road. And I announced to the world, "Hey, there's a gigantic ammunition case!" But it turned into a tree trunk.
And did you have any auditory hallucinations?
Yeah, climbing. It's a extremely long climb up Mount Elbert, like 4.5 hours. And up in the high country, there was a dude strumming a banjo. I didn't see him, but I could hear him. He was strumming away.
Any other?
Conversations, like distant. I could hear men and women talking to each other in like these animated conversations. I couldn't hear what they were saying, and I'm sure it was like just the wind whistling around, because it was consistently very windy in the high country. Mm-hmm. But to me, on the second day, the wind, that was people talking to each other for sure.
Yeah. Now, you'd been on the Nolan's 14 course a lot over the last couple of years, but Missy Gosney and Anna Frost's effort last year, did that sort of spark anything to get you out here?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, what they did was what no woman had managed to do before. And I mean, some women had tried, but not a lot, in comparison to the number of men who had tried. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'd have to research to see if the number of women represents sort of like the number of women who do alpine sports, or endurance sports. But I have a hankering that it has even less the percentage of women who've tried Nolan's than do big mountain sports and stuff. So seeing two women just woman handle Nolan's last year was definitely inspiring.
And did you ever feel like the flip side of that while you were out there? Like, I'm going to show, women that we can do this. Or did you have any?
Definitely, there was impetus there to be a woman and to woman handle it. I mean, it's a, yeah, I mean, it's a course that anybody can do. I mean, it's not your gender that defines whether you can do that or not. It's various abilities, and it's definitely some woman power that drove me there.
Yeah. Now, I guess I asked this to anybody who I've not interviewed before, or we haven't. How did you come to running?
How did I come to running?
Yeah, what's your athletic background?
It's really funny.
I know, but...
So, when I was in 8th grade, I decided I wanted to join cross country and track when I went to high school the next year. And my best friend at the time and I decided that if we were going to be ready for running, we needed to start training. And so we would go to the local community center in the suburban Minnesota town that I grew up in, and we would run on the treadmills.
And
that's how I started running.
And yeah, but did you run in college or high school?
I ran in high school. I was a dual sport athlete, so I did track and field in the spring and tennis in the fall. And then I had planned to do the same thing when I went to college, but it turned out that I was a pretty decent doubles tennis player, and we had year-round tennis at college. So I was a better tennis player than a runner, so that's what I did in college.
And did you come back to running right away, or?
Yeah. Tennis doesn't really travel well past tennis courts, and running goes anywhere. And our tennis team did tons of running as training, and just naturally went right back to road. Well, not back to, went naturally to 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and then discovered trail running.
How was that?
So I was working in Big Bend National Park in West Texas, and so I did a ton of hiking, ton of back country travel. Off-trail travel was really popular there, so I'd go out with my friends on an all-day off-trail adventure, and then come back and go on an evening road run, because I didn't know trail running existed. Wow, you can combine those things. But a girl called Amy moved to Big Bend, and we were co-workers and friends. Not were, still are, sorry. She exists, and she was a trail runner, and she opened my eyes to a new sport.
And you've been doing it ever since?
Yeah.
And apparently longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
Over time?
Yeah, it's not the distance, it's the experience. It's getting to be in places like this. Yeah.
So that naturally leads me to ask, what other adventures inspire you in the future? Not necessarily this season, but what...
I'm very inspired by sitting on a couch right now.
Fair enough, but...
I don't know. That's a really good question. Yeah. I mean, there's some things that I want to do in the Sierra Nevada. I lived there for a couple of years. Got to see and do a lot of stuff, but there's more that I want to do there. I have sort of a project of summiting all of the 13ers in the Uinta Mountains in Utah, and I haven't quite finished that. It's a lot of off-trail travel. So I want to finish that. And yeah. The Wind River Range in Wyoming, that's another mountain range that I've been to a couple times, and have some routes there that I really want to go back and do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you are signed up for a race in
I know.
About a month.
It's the ELS 2900 in Andorra. It's a 70K race that travels over the highest peaks of Andorra, all over 2,900 meters.
7 of them, right?
7.
And that's a more technical adventure than Nolan 14.
Yeah, I think it kind of has some adventure racing type aspects. There are a couple of via ferratas that we'll do, and some off-trail navigation, and some class 4 scrambling. And
harness and helmet at parts, correct?
Yeah, just a couple of short bits, I think.
Now, obviously you just you had a hard effort at Hard Rock, a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, almost 2 months ago now. Could you see yourself going to ELS 2900 and just taking it as a explorational adventure? Or
Yeah, and I don't think I would ever go to that race wanting to try to be competitive, because yeah, I've spent time on that type of terrain, but I've never spent time trying to be super fast on that type of terrain, and I don't know that I'm comfortable with that. So I really want to go ahead and have the experience, and I think it's in my gearbox in terms of what I can do, but I don't think I ever had like speed as what I was going to be focused on there.
But you, over the next couple weeks, maybe get some, if you have the opportunity to get some training in on that type of terrain, or those skills.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna once my legs bounce back a little bit, gonna try to get out and freshen up on that stuff, and as I feel comfortable and ready. But yeah, I mean, that's just gonna be a glorious adventure, I hope.
Hopefully. Well, congratulations on Nolan's 14.
Thanks. It's funny to shake your hand.
Oh, good job.